The Pentagon says that Iranian missile launches are down 86% since the war began, and Israel says the joint force has destroyed more than 300 launchers in the past few days. We also have the war continuing to expand as Israeli ground forces move into Lebanon and Iranian drones impact in Azerbaijan. Lastly, we have some updates on the Iranian school that was hit in the opening days of the war and what that might mean for long-term U.S. operations. But first, overnight, the Pentagon confirmed the identity of the 5th American soldier so far killed during Operation Epic Fury. On the screen here is Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45 years old, of the 103rd Sustainment Command, an Army Reserve unit based out of Iowa. Major O'Brien was killed in an Iranian drone strike at his base in Kuwait, along with the 4 soldiers we mentioned yesterday. My understanding is the 6th may have been identified. I've seen a picture and a name circulating, but I have also seen that the Pentagon is still waiting to verify the identity and notify the family, so we'll hold for more information there. Now, turning to the reduction so far of the Iranian ballistic missile threat that we know has been a key component of U.S. and Israeli objectives in this war. Critical Threats said, quote, Iran has continued to launch a greater number of drones in its attacks as the number of ballistic missile launches continues to fall, which likely reflects the combined forces' success in degrading Iran's ability to launch ballistic missiles. Iran has launched a total of 798 missiles and 1,628 drones since the war started on February 28th. The IDF assessed on March 3rd that the combined force has destroyed around 300 Iranian ballistic missile launchers. U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Kane just yesterday said that Iran's ballistic missile fire is down 86% compared to February 28th and has decreased 23% within the past 24 hours. U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian command and control networks may also be limiting Iran's ability to launch large missile barrages. Couple key notes there. This is the terminology of going after the archer instead of trying to shoot down the arrow. We've talked about this a lot with the war in Ukraine, and this is something Secretary Hegseth and General Kane have even mentioned in recent operations in Iran. So if you look at pure numbers, Iran has a lot more missiles than they do launchers that can fire those missiles. So, if we go after the mobile launchers and destroy those, it pretty significantly reduces their ability to sling those munitions. Drones are a little bit of a different story, and you'll see there that the drone numbers have increased, right? Drones can be much more agile, much more flexible in the platforms that they're launched off of, but that comes with some other aspects here, right? Missiles are generally harder to shoot down and come with a bigger warhead, and for the depending on the type, can travel further than drones. So if we are able to eliminate Iranian missiles and they're only able to fire these long-range drones, that significantly reduces the threat that they pose to the region. Still a threat, it's just reduced. Now, one site I wanted to share with you all here is showing the battle damage assessments, publicly available satellite imagery on SOAR here, SOAR Atlas. So we've seen more and more satellite imagery coming out showing the effectiveness of U.S. and Israeli strikes. We've got a lot of videos of the strikes taking place. This will be linked in the description below, and they've got a number of locations where you can take a look at how these locations appeared before and after U.S. and Israeli strikes were carried out. So IRGC facilities, airfields, naval ports, missile locations, missile launch sites, all sorts of stuff in here. And we've got another one we'll pull up here to show you the difference. Again, there's the after. Pretty clearly, a lot of that drone launch facility destroyed, moving to before. So I think SOAR Atlas, pretty easy tool to play around with here. Again, this is publicly available. I'm not even signed in to this platform. So you can check that out if interested. Now, one thing worth bringing up when it comes to the reduction of Iranian missile launches, that is a success, but it does not mean that this war is or necessarily will be over the long term successful. We have to separate these things out. And the reason it's still very, very early in this conflict. And the reason I want to bring that up is if we go back, it's March 2026. If we go back 4 years to March 2022, the Russian invasion of Ukraine was barely a month in, and we started seeing articles that Russia had run out of precision munitions. And it wasn't just like random anonymous sources. They were quoting UK and US, defense officials, people inside the Pentagon and inside the UK Defense Ministry saying, we think they're probably running out at this point. And look, here we are 4 years later, and the last week of February, Russia launched more than 100 guided missiles and more than 1,700 strike drones into Ukraine in 1 week. I don't think anybody right now is suggesting that Russia is out of long-range missiles. And that hasn't been the case since the opening days of the war. There have been changes, no doubt. And to be clear, Russia and Iran, apples to oranges in this comparison. I'm more looking at the intelligence aspect of this. The Russian manufacturing facilities, for the most part, were untouched for years at least. And now they're seeing a degree of damage where a lot of the Iranian facilities are being taken out. All right, so there's a difference here. But when we're looking at the intelligence assessment of an enemy's capability very early in a conflict, just in the very recent past, the United States and UK and others got that pretty wrong. Now, in talking about the ongoing drone threat, it sounds like Ukraine has actually offered some help and might be sending some teams to the Middle East to help their allies there intercept these Iranian Shahed drones. Ukrainian President Zelensky yesterday put out a statement talking about their partners in the Middle East, saying all of them face a serious challenge and speak openly about it. Iranian attack drones are the same Shaheds that have been striking our cities, villages, and our Ukrainian infrastructure throughout this war. Ukraine can contribute to protecting lives and stabilizing the situation. Partners are reaching out to us. I have tasked Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, together with intelligence agencies, the Ministry of Defense, our military command, to present options for assisting the relevant countries and to provide aid in a way that does not weaken our own defense here in Ukraine. Ukrainian experts will operate on site, and teams are already coordinating these efforts. That's pretty significant. I mean, you've got Ukraine, again, in a war for their survival right now, talking about sending people on site, counter-drone experts on site to the Middle East to start helping the United States and our allies there do what we can to intercept these Shahed drones. The big issue when it comes to these drones is the cost differential, kind of what it comes down to. So you're talking for a Shahed somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000, depending on the model and the capabilities. We cannot afford to shoot those down with our expensive interceptors from things like the Patriot. There's no indication that we are or that we have been, but it kind of falls down the chain. You need to use something cheaper. But even man-portable air defense systems, man-pads, like Stingers, that's not cost-effective over a period of time. Ukraine has developed very inexpensive interceptors, like under $10,000 per interceptor, that are able to bring these down. It looks like Ukraine is shifting at least that knowledge base to the Middle East. Wouldn't be surprised if they offer up the sale of some of these munitions to the allies in the Middle East before too long. Now, we are seeing, once again, every day now, this is a continuing theme, the war is expanding. Just yesterday, Israel announced that they have moved troops into southern Lebanon. They put out a statement saying, quote, "Troops of the Northern Command are deployed across several positions in southern Lebanon as part of the forward defensive posture. Troops from the 91st Division are operating in the east of southern Lebanon. Troops of the 210th are operating in the Mount Dove area, and troops from the 146th are operating west of southern Lebanon. The deployment consists of infantry, armored, and engineering troops operating together." They say the deployment was made in order to provide an additional layer of defense for the residents of northern Israel, to continue preventing any emerging threats, and to protect against any attempts to infiltrate into the territory of Israel. We've actually seen a significant uptick in Israeli strikes into Lebanon in just the last 24 hours. It went from a couple right out the gate to massive bombardments throughout Beirut and elsewhere. Hezbollah, from what I've seen, has only claimed a couple drone and rocket launches at this point. They did release some footage showing some drone strikes being carried out, or launching at least, into Israel. Israel appears to be going pretty hard up north. My kind of read on that is they want to kind of nip this in the bud, if you will. Don't want to get drug into a long-term sustained fight with Hezbollah, and rather would hit them very hard, very quickly, and just kind of eliminate that threat if possible in a matter of days, so they can focus more effort on Iran. Now, the continuing escalation here, lateral escalation is probably the best way to put it. More and more countries getting pulled into this. I saw a good line earlier today. I can't remember where I saw it, so it's not mine. That's all I'm going to say, is I didn't come up with this. But somebody mentioned that this is more of a Gulf War than either of the Gulf Wars were Gulf Wars. Just everybody is being hit at this point. We saw yesterday Turkey. There were missiles intercepted on their way to Turkey. That was a first. And then last night we actually got footage of Iranian drones impacting in Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan Ministry of Foreign Affairs said they strongly condemned the attack that was launched from Iranian territory. Their Ministry of Defense said the attacks on the country's infrastructure will not go unanswered. We are preparing response measures to defend the autonomy of Azerbaijan, its citizens, and the critical infrastructure. Full responsibility for the attacks lies with Iran. And a quick look here on kind of one of the key aspects of Azerbaijan is air travel. And they just shut down their airspace for at least 12 hours. When you look at this, one of the challenges, again, the Iranian strategy that we've talked about is trying to inflict as much pain on as many people as possible. So people around the world, countries around the world, go to President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu and say, stop, we can't take it. Can you guys ease up for a little bit? Can't you go back to talking? And if you look at the Azerbaijan attacks in that lens, it does kind of make sense. So countries were already rerouting air travel around portions of Ukraine and Russia. So the northern portion there was largely cut off. The southern portion, again, this flight radar, flight tracking app here, the southern portion is over Iran and much of the Middle East that has been shut down now for a number of days. So it is just further redirecting air travel, making it harder and harder, shutting off a significant portion of the globe where planes just aren't going to fly. That's a major disruption, and it's possible that's what the Iranian regime was going for with this strike. Now, I did want to address, always tough balancing this. There were some rumors that at this point appear to not be accurate, but they got a lot of traction yesterday, and I'm always kind of struggling on, should we bring them up at all and add any fuel to that fire unnecessarily, even if we're trying to push them back down? But I'm going to roll the dice here. There's two that got a lot of traction yesterday on some major outlets. The first was that American F-15s were shot down in Iran. Started yesterday afternoon, kind of went through the night and into this morning. U.S. Central Command has since said that is completely made up. There's no evidence to back that up. There are not any American F-15s that were shot down or crashed. I also haven't seen anything from Iranian outlets showing footage of aircraft being down, certainly no wreckage. As of now, doesn't look like that actually happened. The other one was a Kurdish offensive. This was actually picked up on like major U.S. news outlets, saying that Kurdish officials and U.S. senior officials had verified that there was an offensive operation with Kurdish forces invading Iran. That went for a few hours. Again, major traction. But from what I can tell, all Kurdish officials responded with, what are you talking about? And there doesn't appear to be any of this happening at all. And a noticeable lack of footage. Like if there is a massive offensive happening right now, I mean, thousands of troops was what one publication quoted. If there were thousands of troops pouring across the border, invading Iran, engaging in military action right now, you'd think that we would see something, and we haven't yet. So again, those look like two of the rumors going around yesterday. I think right now we can say are not, at the very least, not verified. But that does speak to something that I wanted to bring up, which is the increased complexity of war the longer it goes on. Secretary Hegseth talked about this a little bit in his speech yesterday, or his press conference yesterday, where he actually used it as a way to knock Iran. And he said, hey, look, it's like a football game. They've called their first 10 plays, but now they don't know what to do after that, and they can't even get back into the huddle to figure out what to do next. And that's true in war, but that also goes both ways. So, like, no doubt the United States has a series of, like, we have plans, D+1, D+2, D+3, and then we can branch off of those plans based off of what has happened. But war is messy and unpredictable. Like, I don't know how many people planned that Turkey and Azerbaijan would be on the receiving end of Iranian munitions, or how many people predicted that the British airbase in Cyprus would have taken a direct hit from an Iranian drone. Like, you see how these things are kind of happening fast, and every day the war goes on, any war goes on, it becomes more unpredictable. So right now, we very well might be adhering to a strict plan, day to day, carrying out operations as we see fit, that we've rehearsed for a long time. But every day it goes on, there's more complexity, and it becomes harder and harder to keep everything under control. So just something to keep in mind as we enter the fifth now day of Operation Epic Fury. Now, this was somewhat the conversation yesterday as the Senate voted on a war powers resolution. This was essentially the first legislative pushback in the United States to operations in Iran. It failed. NPR reported, quote, a resolution to require President Trump to seek congressional approval for any further action in Iran failed to advance in the Senate 5 days after the U.S. and Israel launched a military campaign against the Iranian regime. The vote was 47-53, largely along party lines. If passed, the resolution would have blocked further U.S. military action in Iran without congressional approval. The House is expected to vote on a similar measure on Thursday. I would not expect anything really to happen with that. I mean, this has been a debate for 20 plus years at this point. If we're just going with modern history, the Congress has pretty well delegated their ability to execute war to the commander-in-chief. They've just completely walked away from that. I've voiced in many videos, I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's where it should be. But the idea that right now, as bullets are flying, I mean, we saw the statement yesterday from a couple Republicans. So President Trump is Republican. That's the party in power in the White House, the Senate, and across Congress, in the House as well. So there were some Republicans whose statements were that a vote against this right now would be tantamount to not supporting the troops, or we have to get behind it now because we have our sons and daughters in harm's way. So if this is something that was not able to be wrestled away from the president back to Congress during times of peace or even limited military action, the idea that it's going to happen while we've got large-scale combat operations happening, I think is a pipe dream at this point. Now, the reason I do think that is important is because we're getting more and more indications that this is going to last longer than a few days, a few weeks. It could go on for months. And something I'm not sure if we're ready in the United States as an American people for some of the videos and some of the pictures that will be circulating, be they true or false. And I think the first example here that we saw right out the gate was the school that was hit on day one of these strikes. The Guardian did a follow-up on this. Bottom line up front, they still don't know. There's still no evidence, like the confirmation of what exactly happened here. But I want to get into the Guardian piece here. This, of course, will be linked in the description below because I think this is very, very relevant to how this war looks for the United States going forward. They say a strike on the school during the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign killed up to 168 people. The Guardian has pieced together the incident and its aftermath using verified footage and images from the site. The missile hit during the school's morning session. In Iran, the school week runs from Saturday to Thursday, so when U.S. and Israeli bombs began falling at around 10 a.m. or on Saturday, classes were underway. At a point between 10 a.m. and 10:45, a missile directly hit the school in Manab, southern Iran, demolishing its concrete building and killing dozens of 7 to 12-year-old girls. According to Iranian state media, up to 168 people were killed by the strike and 95 injured, figures that The Guardian has not yet been able to verify. They say, according to Iranian state media, they say The Guardian cross-referenced verified videos from the site with satellite imagery to confirm the location of the primary school. The school is adjacent to a cluster of buildings that form the local Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps barracks and support buildings. The complex next to the school includes a medical clinic and pharmacy with signage bearing the IRGC logo that reads Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Naval Medical Command. They say there is no indication, however, that the school is in any sense a military-use building. Its classroom building and playground is walled off from the rest of the compound, and the colorful murals on the walls are visible in some satellite imagery. They quoted Captain Tim Hawkins, the spokesperson for U.S. Central Command, saying the U.S. was aware of reports concerning civilian harm resulting from ongoing military operations, saying we take these reports seriously. Secretary Rubio said the Department of War would be investigating and that the United States would not deliberately target a school. This question was asked of Secretary Hegseth yesterday, and he said they have no new information. An investigation is underway. The Guardian says shortly after the attack, misinformation began to proliferate online. Some social media accounts claimed the footage of the school was from Pakistan, a claim that has since been debunked. Several X accounts also made viral claims that the school had been struck by a misfired IRGC missile, but the photographs of the misfire that they present as evidence was taken around 1,600 kilometers away from Manab in the city of Zanjan. So we don't know still at this point. The fact that we've not released much pointing at the IRGC does make me think that it would have been at this point, it looks like it was probably a U.S. missile based off the information we have. The reason I want to highlight this right now, which of course it's important to notice this in any conflict, is for anybody that followed the war in Gaza, we saw very, very quickly that Israeli strikes started hitting facilities that in the United States we generally wouldn't. And the justification was that hospitals were being utilized by Hamas. There were tunnels underneath schools. And look, there's plenty of footage to verify that, but there were a lot of civilian casualties that came out of that as well. And I think in the United States, my interpretation is a lot of people were able to kind of close their eyes and say, well, we're not the ones conducting the war. That's Israel doing that. I wonder how that plays in the U.S. So again, whether a claim is accurate or not, whether the IRGC starts putting their people in schools and hospitals and all of that or not, what is that impact going to be in the U.S. if it appears that we are, again, if the IRGC is starting to use classrooms for meetings and we start hitting classrooms because the IRGC uses that, I don't know how well that's going to go over in the United States. Again, when you're looking at Israel fighting in Gaza, that has been a persistent threat. People in Israel have grown up dealing with rockets coming in and their soldiers and citizens being kidnapped and taken in there. So I think there's more leniency maybe in the Israeli population for some of those strikes and the collateral damage that comes with it. I don't know that is the same across the American public right now. So the school strike, I think, is the first. Hopefully it's the last instance like this at all. But I just think as this war grinds on, we're probably this could have the effect of bringing out a lot of people very much against the war. So I think it's not just an incident, a tragic incident a few days ago. This could play a significant role in how this war plays out going forward. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.